Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. So, I, 28 female, got divorced from my ex-husband, Darren, 28 male, last year. It was an ugly separation and divorce. I won't say that it was because we fought a lot or acted petty. It was because of what we had to divorce in the first place. No matter how bizarre this sounds, my marriage ended because Darren did a DNA test on our newborn daughter, and it showed that he wasn't the father. Before you call me names, let me tell you that I never cheated on my husband, nor was I assaulted. Back then, I had no idea why the DNA test said that my daughter wasn't my husband's. Maybe we were stupid, but in the height of emotions, we didn't get a second DNA test. I did try in the beginning, but Darren refused to talk to me or even see my face. He went to stay with his parents, and I wasn't allowed anywhere near him. We got a divorce, and now 2 years after that DNA test destroyed everything. The truth came out. Darren reached out to me yesterday to tell me that his brother Josh, 31 male, had intentionally tampered with the DNA samples to break us up. Darren says that Josh did it because he was in love with me. I really don't know what to make of this. There were never any signs of Josh being in love with me. I did know Josh before I knew Darren. Josh and I worked at the same company. I was there freshly out of college while he had been working there for a while. We weren't friends per se, but we were friendly. I didn't even meet Darren through him. I met Darren randomly at my cousin's wedding. He was her colleague. By this point, I had shifted to another company and didn't see Josh at all. We occasionally chatted online, but that wasn't more than once a month. You can only imagine my surprise when I saw him at Darren's parents' place. He was shocked to see me too. Like I said, we don't share every detail of our lives with each other. He knew I dated someone, and I knew he was single. That's it. Looking back, I think Josh was trying his best not to look too uncomfortable or annoyed. He hardly spoke to me, which I thought was odd. I thought that he was just a little overwhelmed. I knew he wasn't a very social person. Over time, I thought that we had a civil relationship. He somewhat avoided me and didn't really show up to even parties or gatherings. Again, he wasn't very social, so even his own parents didn't see this as a red flag. I did wonder why we didn't really talk anymore, but I was too busy with my life to worry about it too much. Eventually, Darren and I got married, and 2 years ago, we had our daughter. Darren and I were both looking forward to my pregnancy. It wasn't planned, but we were happy. My in-laws were happy as well. Josh was detached, as he usually was. I really should have paid close attention to these things, because now I am beating myself up for not seeing red flags. I had no idea that Josh would manipulate my husband so badly. He maintained his relationships with Darren, and they hung out together as much as possible. Darren had been confiding in Josh about his fears and excitement about being a dad. I knew all of it, and didn't think it was a problem. The problem started when Josh started filling Darren's head with nonsense. It all began when my ex-best friend was caught cheating on her boyfriend and trying to pass off someone else's child as his. She had come to me crying one night because her boyfriend had kicked her out. I didn't know the whole story back then and took her in. When the truth came out, I confronted her and she didn't deny it. My father left my mother for his affair partner, so this one hit close to home. I ended up having a huge fallout with my ex-friend and kicked her out after Darren said that he won't host a cheater in his house. I was sad to lose my best friend, but I didn't have it in me to continue the friendship. I was 7 months along during this time, so I was pretty emotional as well. Josh somehow took advantage of this situation and started telling Darren that I may be cheating on him too. I know this because Darren would sometimes act weird and make comments on it. Josh had gotten into Darren's head that I knew about and supported my friend's cheating, which is why I took her in. He also said that I must have kicked her out so that she couldn't expose me and drag me down with her. There were things said about how my father was a serial cheater and you can't escape what's in your blood. All in all, Josh convinced Darren that he needed to ask for a DNA test and make sure that the baby was his. After multiple fights and lots of crying, I agreed to have a DNA test after the baby was born. I was offended and felt disrespected, but I didn't have anything to hide. I will also be honest and say that I never thought Darren would seriously go through with the DNA test. He was acting all loving and caring right until the time I gave birth. After I came home with the baby, Darren started to push for a DNA test again, and so did Joshua. References were made on how much paternity fraud is everywhere nowadays, so it's not abnormal to want to be sure. I really wasn't in the mental space to deal with all this, and I was too ashamed to tell my family about it. So, I quietly agreed, thinking that Darren would shut up and make it right once the test came back positive. You already know that it didn't. Anyways, I won't get into too much of the depressing details of what happened next. Darren moved in with his parents, and I moved in with my mom. Since I was drowning in bad mental health and had a newborn to take care of, my sister moved in temporarily to help out. I wasn't working for 3 months before giving birth, so I didn't have a lot of money for lawyers and stuff. Darren wasn't giving me a dime, and I was too traumatized from our fights to ask him for anything. For the next 6 months, I experienced hell and nearly lost my mind. My mother and sister helped me come back to the land of the living. I started to look after myself for my daughter's sake. Darren went completely silent, and so did his family. Eventually, at the 1-year mark, we got a mutual divorce. None of us wanted to drag things out for my own mental health's sake. I started working and slowly saved up so that I could move out of my mom's house. I started to take full responsibility for me and my daughter, while my mother and sister helped with free babysitting. I was a broken woman, and it took me a long time to process everything. I am doing decently fine, or I was doing fine, until I got an email from Darren. He is now begging for a chance to meet up and save our family. He wants to see our daughter, who he hadn't seen since the DNA test came out. It was a very long email that basically said that he is ashamed of how he acted, and he regrets letting Josh get into his head. He said a lot of other things, but I won't mention them here. Reading the email has absolutely unsettled me. I don't even know what to think or do. Part of me is angry and hurt, and doesn't want anything to do with Darren. Part of me wants to confront Josh and beat him into a pulp. The other part of me wants to meet and talk to Darren so that my daughter can have her father back in her life again. I am so confused right now, guys. What should I do? First of all, I'm so sorry this happened to OP. What Josh did wasn't just cruel. It was calculated and malicious. He didn't make a mistake or act out of confusion. He sabotaged OP's marriage, destroyed her mental health during postpartum, and robbed a child of her father for 2 years. Darren absolutely failed OP by trusting his brother over his wife, but Josh is the real villain here. Before OP even considers reconciling, Darren needs to prove he understands the magnitude of what he allowed to happen, and why I was manipulated is not a sufficient excuse. And now let's hear community's opinion. I'm going to be blunt. Darren doesn't get to waltz back into your life because the truth is convenient now. He abandoned you when you were at your most vulnerable, freshly postpartum, financially unstable, and emotionally shattered. He didn't ask for a second test. He didn't protect you. He didn't question the result hard enough to defend his marriage. Wanting to save the family now doesn't erase the damage. If he wants a relationship with his daughter, that conversation should start slowly and legally, not with emotional emails and pressure. Josh's behavior is deeply disturbing, and I'd be very cautious about any future where he still has access to you or your child. This wasn't just jealousy. It involved impersonation, evidence tampering, and years of deception. That's obsession-level behavior. Before you meet Darren in person, you should demand the full truth in writing. How the DNA was tampered with, how Darren found out, whether there's proof, and whether Josh is facing consequences. Your safety and your daughter's safety come first. It's okay to be conflicted. Wanting your daughter to have her father doesn't mean you owe Darren a second chance as a husband. Those are two separate decisions. You can allow supervised contact or a gradual reintroduction without reopening old wounds or rushing forgiveness. Take your time. Talk to a therapist. Talk to a lawyer. Darren made choices that destroyed your trust. Rebuilding anything requires accountability, patience, and actions, not just regret-filled emails. Edit. I came back from work to find a fair bit of comments on my post. I am tired and have a fussy 2-year-old who needs my constant attention, so I can't reply to all individual questions. Please read this edit to find your doubts and answers. Some of you commented on how he was able to switch the DNA test. My husband has always been very close to his brother, so they do everything together. When this stupid brother got into his head, Darren let him take over the entire process, and even took him along when he visited the testing lab. I think in the midst of all this, somehow Josh was able to switch the containers and replace it with something else. I am not really sure about all the details, but that's my theory. Part of me wants to meet up with Darren just to find out exactly what happened and how all this mess came into existence. He only gave me bits and pieces of information and has been begging to meet so that he could tell me the full story. I haven't really communicated back much or asked questions because something like this cannot happen over text. Also, I don't know if things would get complicated if I end up visiting him, so I don't know if it will be worth it. 2 years is a long time, but the courts may still think that he is entitled to visitation of our child, especially since she is young. I grew up without a father, and it wasn't a good experience. That's why I don't want that for my daughter. I am really confused right now about what to do. Getting back with Josh is pretty much off the table, so anyone who thinks that I'm going to be a doormat and just take him back will be disappointed. I am not that delusional. Darren did something that completely destroyed our marriage and relationship. There won't be a second chance as far as I am concerned. Whatever dreams he has of getting his marriage back are just dreams. They will not turn into a reality. You asked where my ex-husband's parents had been in all this. Well, I am not going to lie, but I had an amazing relationship with them. However, they turned their backs when the DNA test came out. To be very honest, both my mother-in-law and father-in-law had privately spoken to me before the DNA test and told me that they trust me and don't know why Josh is so hell-bent on proving me a cheater. Of course, they quickly changed their stance when the DNA test came out. I know for a fact that Darren was a mess and had some really bad mental health episodes, so they focused on him and didn't really keep in touch. Kudos to them for not calling me names or being rude. I didn't reach out to them either, because I was too much of a mess and too busy grieving my marriage while taking care of my newborn. I haven't really heard back from them since then, and I doubt that will change. But if they do reach out and want a relationship with my daughter, I'm going to give them a chance. It's too early to think about this in too much detail. Update 1. Hi guys, thank you so much for giving me your advice and perspectives. It has helped me make a decision. I will get into that a little later. First, I'm going to address something that annoyed me a lot. A commenter was extremely offended that I didn't pursue Darren for child support or ask for a court-ordered DNA test. Well, it's easy for people to make assumptions and pass judgments while they are in a normal environment and are completely mentally sound. Maybe it's my fault for not mentioning that I had PPD, and all this DNA test drama resulted in me being messed up in the head. Darren was no better. I am not sure of the details, but some of his friends had left me nasty messages saying that I would be responsible if Darren ended up self-ending. That sent me into a panic attack and made things worse in my head. So I never asked to elaborate or wasted details. My sister is the one who blocked all of them and took full control of my phone after this particular day. My mother had talked to Darren's parents and told me that the best course of action would be to just have a mutual divorce. Darren wasn't able to attend too many meetings, and I didn't have the time and energy to drag it out either. I am not sure why Darren didn't opt to drop his name from the birth certificate. Again, it might be due to the fact that he wasn't in a good place mentally. My mom has raised me as a single mom, so she always taught me to take responsibility for my own child without relying on anyone. I had plenty of help, so I didn't think about pursuing child support. Maybe I would have once the little one started school and expenses would pile up. Looks like I may not have to worry about that because I have already decided on meeting with Darren. I have the full support of my family, so I am confident in my stance. You guys left some lovely comments for my mother and sister. I showed them all those comments and DMs. They are touched by all the love they got, but they also said that family should be this way and try their best to help out when someone is in trouble. God knows what would have happened to me if they weren't around. I can't tell you how many sleepless nights they had spent consoling me and taking care of my daughter because I was simply not in the mental headspace to properly care for her at that moment. My brother-in-law is also a gem of a man because instead of being mad at my sister for helping me, he contributed to the fund that was made to support me during the divorce. My luck in marriage has been downright crap, but my family is the best on this planet. I guess that's enough for me. One thing I didn't mention was that my brother-in-law, Keith, also encouraged me to meet up with Darren and maybe set up visitation with my daughter. I really respect his opinion and understand his reasoning, so it helped me make the right decision. Someone had reached out to me in the DMs to tell me that despite what happened, Darren could easily take me to court and get visitation. I don't want to make things that ugly. I wanted to see if Darren was truly ready to be a father. So I opted to meet up with him and judge him myself before making any decision. Sorry to everyone who told me not to do that. I needed this closure as well, no matter how selfish that sounds. I have already set up a date and arranged to meet at a public place. My brother-in-law will accompany me because my mother and sister may end up punching the living daylights out of Darren if they see him. I don't want any violence involved in this meeting, and I like my family out of jail than inside it. Everything is set, and I admit that I am feeling a little nervous. I have saved all the texts and taken proper screenshots of our conversations in case things go south and lawyers become involved. I fully intend to discuss visitation with my daughter if things go well, but if I suspect that Darren is putting up an act or isn't actually being genuine in his desire to see our daughter, I'm going to take a step back and not even mention visitation or anything. I hope for my daughter's sake that Darren turns out to be genuine in his desire to rebuild his relationship with our daughter. I have already mentioned in the edit, and I'm going to say it again, that I won't be getting back with Darren. That possibility has gone down to zero. I am definitely not looking for excuses to get back with Darren. The trust is gone, and so is the love. I am only doing this for closure and for my daughter. I am sorry if any of you don't agree with me. You guys really helped me with a lot of perspective and good advice. I have to thank you for that because I appreciate your perspective and insights. I will definitely keep all your advice in mind before making new decisions on this situation. Update 2. I met up with Darren and things went as well as you might expect. It was a long and hard conversation with lots of yelling and crying. It was mostly me who yelled and he who cried. It was a mess and almost like a dumpster fire. Things became a little intense, so we had to leave the cafe we met at and go to my brother-in-law's place to talk. I didn't want to put on a show for strangers. I was stupid or naive to think that it would be a calm conversation. Things just don't happen that way. I had a lot of repressed anger that I needed to let out. Doing it in public was a little embarrassing, so we moved to a more private space. Darren and I talked while Keith monitored us. Some of you wanted to know the details of what happened. Well, I can't make a book out of this post, so I will only give you some details. So, apparently Josh switched the DNA samples with those of his friend. This same friend ended up confessing to Darren because he was about to be a father and finally understood the gravity of what he did. This friend was the one who spilled the beans on Josh being in love with me and all that jazz. He also sent Darren text proof, among others, that Darren then showed me. I am even more disgusted with Josh than I was before. It's only my good luck that he hadn't contacted me after all this. Apparently, Josh was a little spooked with the aftermath of what happened. Darren made a self-ending attempt, which made Josh both remorseful and scared. He knew that his actions had some severe consequences, which is why he never tried to contact me after the divorce. The friend also said that Josh wasn't sure if and how he would convince me to be with him. He just didn't want to see his brother have a family with me. He didn't have a step-by-step plan or anything. It was done on impulse that later blew up in his face. Josh had apparently begged his friend not to tell anyone, and his friend listened, but broke that promise recently. As of now, Josh and Darren's entire family and friend group know the truth. The friend also got cut off, but he said that he doesn't mind and would rather face the consequences than keep lying and bring in more bad karma. I have no comments about this guy or Josh. I am not even going to get into the disturbing details that Darren told me and showed me proof. I am also not going to detail the entire conversation I had with Darren. Those things are highly personal, and I am uncomfortable putting it out in the open. Long story short, he begged for forgiveness, but I didn't give it to him. I did, however, tell him that I was willing to let him see our daughter and set up visitation with a lawyer. But I wanted to go to therapy with him and see for myself if he is really fit to be a father. He has been seeing a therapist since the separation, so we will just go together and see what progress he has made. We will contact our lawyers and set up visitation only if I am satisfied with what the therapist says. He might be remorseful and desperate to have his daughter in his life, but I am not taking any chances. I learned my lesson the hard way. Darren did ask for couples counseling with the intention to be together again eventually, but I shut it down fast and told him in no uncertain terms that it won't happen again. I have already fallen out of love and have very few feelings towards him whatsoever. I have realized that whatever lingering feelings I have are because of our history and good memories, and not because I'm still in love with him. I don't really care if he feels anything towards me anymore, as long as it doesn't end up affecting our child. That's a possibility I am a little afraid of. I think that Darren wouldn't be crazy enough to use our daughter to get me back, or anything, but then again he did surprise me before, so never say never. I really hope that he got the hint and will deal with his feelings on his own. No matter how angry I am, I genuinely want him to move on and be a good father to our daughter. I think my daughter deserves that, so that's what we talked about. Darren asked my permission to let his parents contact me. They had been dying to talk to me, but didn't want to intrude or approach me without permission. That's why he wanted Darren to ask for permission on their behalf. I have since talked to my ex-in-laws over the phone. There were a lot of apologies and very respectful requests to meet my daughter. I told them that I wasn't going to promise anything, but I'll try to let them meet her. My mother-in-law and I have decided to talk again later because I was too emotionally drained to have a long conversation with her. This is where we are at right now. I would say that all in all the talk went well. No one acted entitled or made demands or tried to minimize their actions. The only bad thing that happened is that I got a lot of disturbing details about Josh's feelings for me. My therapist will have a field day tomorrow when I pay her a surprise visit. Anyway, this is the update for now. If anything changes or something happens, I will let you know if you guys are interested. Thank you for all your input and guidance. Update 3. I didn't get a lot of DMs and comments asking for an update, but I did get some. I figured that I would just make this last update to end this post once and for all. I will also admit that it is a way for me to vent a little, because things have been pretty intense for the past 2 months. I won't lie, but it did take me some time to adjust to the new normal. As of now, Darren has been visiting our daughter every weekend. We contacted lawyers and drew up papers. Darren is also going to start paying child support. He did offer payment for the last 2 years, but I declined because I know that during the divorce, he had lost his job because of his mental health issues. He had been unemployed for 6 months, after which he finally got a job. You can say that I feel bad for him. My mother and sister agree that I don't have to milk him anymore. He is now paying a hefty amount of child support on his own accord anyway. I know that the courts wouldn't have given me so much child support if I had sued. Anyway, more news on that front later. I need to tell you about what happened with Joshua. Some of you had been disappointed that Josh got away without any real consequences. Well, actually that's not true. Shortly after my last post, I had a long phone call with my ex-mother-in-law. She told me that Josh was basically disowned by the family after everything came out. No one really wanted to keep in touch with him anymore. My ex-in-laws decided to cut him out of their will as well. This was mostly due to the fact that Josh had shown no remorse when confronted in person. He tried to shrug it off and say that it wasn't a big deal. At one point, he even said that what happened was inevitable because Darren didn't love me enough to trust me or be with me despite the DNA tests. There was a fistfight later, and Josh ended up with a lot of injuries. He was still acting like everyone was overreacting until his friends started cutting him off. Then he was informed of being disowned and cut out of his parents' will. Instead of finally accepting his mistakes, he showed up to my house and basically demanded that I fix everything because apparently I am responsible for his life going to crap. He was drunk out of his mind and was acting really scary. I was lucky that my childhood friend Dylan was with me when this happened. Josh got really aggressive and ended up trying to strangle me when I told him to leave, and that this is his problem, not mine. Anyway, cops were called, Charges were pressed, and now I have a restraining order in place. He was only let go with probation because he had no prior record. But a bonus point is that he had to pay me for damages and also lost his job because of the police case. Thankfully, he wasn't dumb enough to show up at my door to complain again. It's not like he would find me though, because I have already moved to another place. I didn't feel safe continuing to be in that house, and since my lease expired last month, I decided to move. A spot near my friend's apartment opened up, and it is also close to my mom's house, so I took it. This is the same friend who tackled Josh when he tried to attack me. I am not going to hide the fact that this friend and I are dating. It's been 4 months, actually. I have known him all my life, so it was fairly easy to move forward with this. We are taking things slow and haven't told many people yet. It may be too early to say this, but I have finally started to feel hopeful about my future again. I also told Darren about my dating my childhood friend because I wanted him to know that I was serious about moving on. He looked sad and didn't say much, which is a good thing, I guess. Anyway, Darren has been spending time with our daughter every weekend at our place. We sometimes go out to parks as well. I have been attending sessions with his therapist and feel positive that he is ready to be a good dad. These sessions also made us communicate better, which is necessary since we will co-parent from now on. Overall, I think I made the correct decision to meet up with Darren and give him another chance. My ex-in-laws have also met my daughter again, and we spent 2 great evenings together. So I would say that life has been getting better on all fronts. Saying that, I think this is going to be my last update. I hope it ties up all the loose ends and gives you the same closure that I got.